from their encounters with races from other planets. The information is the activation. Let's awaken this world together. We are the forever students, and we will not be silent. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. It's pretty wild. Welcome, everybody, to another installment of Full Spectrum Universe. My name is Rob Yox. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, everybody. I see we've got Nancy here. We've got Oric. We've got Robert. We've got Stephanie. We've got Selena. Pleasure that you're all here tonight. We are the embattled broadcast that used to be behind enemy lines. We are in the great state of New York, and we are here to talk about the transgressions of the week, right? We're going to be talking about a couple of current event topics, something that we don't normally do. We usually go into research, but tonight I have some things. Hello, Nina. How are you? And Charles. I have some things I want to go over because there's a lot going on outside of in the United States and outside the United States that are not being talked about. Firehouse is here. What's going on? When we're looking at what's happening with these things that are flying around our airspace over. Oh, we've got Nunzi and Gabriella. Hello, hello. We've got a lot of things in our airspace, okay? And what's happening, right? Nobody's saying anything about what they're finding out there. And I think it's truly, truly there is a lot at play here. There's a lot of things behind the scenes that are happening, and I'm going to talk about all of them. Trust me, we're going to get into a couple of theories of what could be the potentiality of what these entities are or these unidentified flying objects. What's going on, Susan? What's going on, Dots? Welcome, everybody, to Full Spectrum Universe. Again, please do us a favor. Share this out. I see Ronnie's here as well. Hello, Ronnie. Share this information out, right? We don't know how many people we can touch within the awakening movement by sharing every bit of information, whether they take it as what it is or discard it. At least we did our duty and it basically giving out everything that we have to help people see that there is more of a brighter light. What's going on, Sue? How are you? And I tell you that there's a lot of things going on. So share this out. Let's try and reach a lot of people tonight. Let's try and get out there and put our good foot forward and spread the love and live within that word of love. We see Gray Noises here as well. Also, like, subscribe, and if you haven't, please, share this out again, but also leave a comment when the stream is over. KGB is here as well. Hello, KGB. Jay Zen. I'm going to start doing this more and more, saying hi to everybody. So one of the things that we're going to be doing in the weeks to come as well is we're working on our energetics workshop. Later on this week, we're going to be dropping the link of where you can purchase your tickets to be a part of that. Also, I want to talk about tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about energetics and what's going on in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. We're going to be touching on that incident and what is actually happening there as well. Rockers is here. What's going on? So we have a lot to cover, right? A lot of this is off the cuff. I have not pre-scripted a lot of this like I do some of the other broadcasts that we do, but we do have some pictures that are going to go along with what we're talking about. And I tell you, tonight is going to be fun because it's not always that we kind of go into current events, right? And we're going to start with the opening salvo as usual. And one of the things that catches me really off guard by what's going on, right? We saw in the very beginning of what was happening with this Chinese spy plane balloon, or whatever the case is, or they want to call it. It's basically a balloon. There are a few things with this balloon that have yet to be mentioned, right? One is that the package or payload of which that they talk about on this balloon has the ability to intercept communications, right? This is one of the most important things to talk about. But there's also a portion of this balloon that is not being talked about, which is the EMP factor of this balloon, right? So these balloons have been experimented on in China for a while. And what are they doing, right? They're rising these balloons to high altitudes. Why would that be? Because these are basically relays for an EMP. And what I mean by that is if a balloon or a device is too close to the Earth, the energetics of the Earth will dissipate that EMP pulse within the surface and it won't be as effective. So they have these balloons, and these balloons are high enough that they can piggyback EMP pulses so that they can basically take out an entire country, region, whatever the desired target is. And a lot of this has to do with directed energy weapons as well. A lot of these directed energy weapons essentially use these types of balloons to piggyback off of. I see Sugar Bee is here. What's going on, Sugar Bee? We got Dots MC in the house. We got Christian here. Everybody's here tonight. So we're all here. So a lot of people have been speculating these unidentified objects, right? My question is, to start, is when did we miss out on these advancements in radar technology that only as of right now we're deciding to pick up these supposed unidentified flying objects, right? One of the things that is absolutely insane is to think that we didn't see these things before. They're saying that they opened up the aperture a little bit more, right? And whatever that means is, I thought that Space Force, the NORAD, and all these different these different entities within the government in North America were essentially watching all of this stuff. Ainsmoth is here. What's going on? But all of a sudden, they're saying, "Well, we opened up the aperture more, and now we're finding all of these different things." Right? So one of the things I want to talk about too is, if we go back to this moment in time where the government was essentially going forward with disclosure, they would say that there are these unidentified flying objects that were flying into Washington airspace for days at a time and not leaving. So we were able to pick those up, but we weren't able to pick up these satellites, balloons, entities, whatever it is, right? So what have they done recently that has changed when it comes to radar technology that is giving them the insight to be able to see what was unseen before? So I don't believe that. I don't believe that they opened up this aperture and now all of a sudden they can see more of what's happening in the airspace around North America, right? Second, when they do press conferences, they decided to do a press conference during the Super Bowl and talk about this. They did another press conference today, but they decided to do a press conference during the Super Bowl. Basically, say, I mean, I know a lot of people who are watching this probably didn't watch the Super Bowl as I did not. I think that there's a lot of satanic ritualization that is involved in the Super Bowl, and I don't think that it is, you know, the best thing to be watching at any given time, right? So I didn't partake in the Super Bowl. Regardless, I was on Clubhouse and we were streaming this press conference that was basically taking place during the third quarter, from what I understand, of the Super Bowl. And a reporter asked a very difficult question. And she basically said, "Is this extraterrestrials? Is there any extraterrestrial contact with these four things that are being shot down over American airspace and Canadian airspace?" And they said, "We have zero idea what this is, but I can tell you one thing, it's not extraterrestrial." Have you they asked, and they also asked, "Have you recovered any of the pieces from these specific things besides the Chinese spy balloon?" They said, "No, we haven't. We're in the process of covering this wreckage now." They asked, "What shapes were these unidentified objects?" One of them was cylindrical in nature. One was hexagonal in nature. So what gets me is that you didn't have the radar to pick these things up. The 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 way that they looked were different than anything we've probably seen be an aircraft on this planet, right? Also, we have pilots who came forward and said that when they've witnessed these specific unidentified objects, they had no propulsion system. They were hovering, right? One of them was over the area where we keep our intercontinental ballistic missiles, which is one of the biggest, most dangerous weapons of mass destruction on this planet. But yet, what's happening, right? They're hovering over this place, but they have no idea what it is. So for them to come out and say it's definitely not aliens, but we have zero idea what it is or who owns it is asinine to me, right? It really it makes me it makes my brain just flip on and off with a little bit of anger towards that. Like, how if you don't know what it is, how are you going to tell us that it's not extraterrestrial in nature, right? But one of the things that a question that wasn't asked is maybe these unidentified flying objects are not from outer space. They're extraterrestrial, but from this planet, right? We know all about the USOs. We know all about the Antarctic programs and, you know, buried under the ice and the different SSP programs essentially that have basically made these types of crafts all over the place. And we don't know if that came from these spots either, right? So that was part of the problem as well. And then again today during the press briefing, they said the same thing. So one of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to bring up a picture of the areas where we saw all of these different unidentified flying objects. First one that they found after the Chinese spy balloon, which was essentially shot out over South Carolina, was Montana, right? This is where the intercontinental ballistic missiles are. This is where our biggest and most buried missiles on in the United States. This is where they reside. Is exactly in that point, right? Then, of course, on Friday they had one very, very close to the north, which was, you know, they don't know what that is yet. They're still trying to recover pieces of that. Then we had Saturday where they got into the Yukon. Now, this is an area that is rich with gold, right? One, and precious metal resources. So basically, it is what it is. Then they saw the octagonal shaped one over Michigan, which is close to where the trains, if by comparison at 60,000 feet, is close to where these two trains derailed this week as well. Now, one of the things that they want to do is they want to say this is Chinese aircraft. But I beg to differ. Going into the media on the CCP media, now again, this is to be trusted just like the American media, not for a grain of salt or a fart in a breeze, right? But they over the last week, they have had similar unidentified flying objects in their airspace, as well as Russia and as well as Turkey. Now, the ones in Turkey were there before the two major earthquakes in Turkey and Syria, which leads me to believe that there is some other conspiratorial uh, entities at play here, right? Now, what happened in Turkey and Syria is a tremendous tragedy. The loss of life is staggering. My hearts and prayers go out to everybody in Turkey and Syria. But I want to speculate on some of the articles that I've been reading from news sources that are not so mainstream, talking about HARP and how a lot of the political leanings in these countries are going against the NWO One World Order type of mentality. And they were essentially trying to break their independence away from places like the EU and things like that. Now, these devastating attacks happen. And I'm not saying that this loss of life is in any way, shape, or form anything but a tragedy. I want to make that very clear because anytime we have consciousness and units of soul brothers and sisters affected by these natural disasters, it's our duty to question what has caused this, right? But also, you know, we we don't want to advocate for something at the behest of that loss of life. So I want to make that clear. And this is in no way, shape, or form indicative of the Turkish Assyrian people either. We're talking about the one world order shifting our reality and trying to create collateral damage so that these entities that stand as Turkey and Syria have to go to somewhere else to look for aid now because they are no longer sustainable within their own, I guess, boundaries of their country. We see this a lot. And a lot of this stuff I don't normally talk about because I don't really like lean into the political stuff too much right now. I used to, so I think I'm pretty good at it. But the analyzing it's there's no such thing as coincidence. And these countries essentially trying to break away from their, unified front in the sense of uh, the EU and the Middle East itself. They were truly trying to break away for their own freedoms. And now this tragedy happens, and they have to go back to those people and say, "We need your help." Therefore, they're inherently owed, or they're apparently under the thumb of those entities yet again. So there were also sightings within Turkey of these same unidentified objects before this major catastrophe that had happened, which would be indicative of foul play somewhere along the line, if you ask me. Diving deeper, I can get into a little bit more of that, but YouTube will censor us, so we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. But back to what we showed earlier, which is the picture. So we're seeing all of these places where these entities or these unidentified objects popped up, right? One of the things that people don't realize is that this is on, if we're looking at the grid, which we're going to pull up in a moment, the grid of ley lines across the United States, we're going to see something eerily similar to what we're seeing there. And I'm going to show it to you, right? This, we're going to switch pictures now. This is the major points of ley lines throughout the United States. Now, we see where these circles are, right? And these are major intersections of ley lines. Also, we're going to show another one of these pictures that's going to be even better to show you exactly what we're talking about. And it's going to really, really change your perception on what's happening. Now, this also has a lot to do with the energetics of the planet. And I'm telling you that because when we start to talk about the two trains that derailed with the carcinogen style, stuff that was inside of it, or the chemicals that were in there, there's going to be a major loss of so many things. So this is another look at where this tracking is, right? These are essentially events that are happening along a specific ley line. Why is that, right? Why is this ley line so important? And I'm going to tell you why. When we went over the energetic grids of the United States and, of course, the entire world, we see that there are layers of grid. Now, when the entities that know that they're losing, essentially, you know, when they're losing, essentially, that this is all lost for them, what they're trying to do is they're trying to cause that collateral damage. This ley line that is there is one that has yet to be fully removed of its artificial machinery. And we know what that is, right? The artificial machinery is what that means is essentially structures within the energy grids that siphon life force, just to, get kind of simplify it for everybody. Now, when we look at this as a whole and we look at what happens with the trains is going to come into play in a major way because the two trains that collided with each other or that got derailed, whatever the case may be, this is the same union that was, well, we're going to talk about CERN when we get down in a little bit, and it gets a little wild on how they've actually admitted that they are contacting entities from other dimensions now, and that's what they're motives were all along, right? And it makes that the great god of Shiva kind of look at you look at that statue in a different light. But the trains, we're going to incorporate the trains now. The trains when they derailed, it wasn't just it's one of the biggest ecological disasters since Chernobyl. Do you remember Chernobyl? How it blew up a lot of Ukraine and the areas surrounding. This ecological disaster is now going to affect 22 states in the United States. What they also didn't do was evacuate the areas around around where these trains basically derailed, which means that this cancer-causing carcinogen is being absorbed into the rain clouds of that area. It's affecting the wildlife, the crops, but also the great mother, right? The planet. And it's on the energetic grid. So there are machineries that reside within that ley line that are essentially still active and trying to not give in so easily, right? They're not trying to be cleared. They're causing severe damage. Now, as we keep going, right, we have no idea what these we're going to go back to the balloons now or the unidentified objects. We have no idea what they are. But there is also a point in time where these little unidentified objects become distractions. And Sugar Bee just said it in the chat. So very well played, Sugar Bee. Very well played. There are distractions. One is that the unidentified objects are distracting from this ecological disaster. Second, they're distracting from the Epstein 160 flight log list being made public in a way that the media companies are now acknowledging it, saying that there are some major players that are going to be held accountable for what has happened at that point, right? We don't really want to go too far into that because, again, that's a censorship issue. Also, this is where it gets absolutely insane. There is economical moves to a basic income strategy, right? With the surveilled cashless society. And that has been implemented this week as well. So all of these things are essentially being put into a under position to these unidentified objects. Now, again, we're going to go back to this. One of the things that turns me off from these, unidentified objects essentially is that nobody else has truly witnessed them, right? Nobody else. And it's crazy. In the day of informational overload, and with these areas, especially, I know Montana is a little bit different, right? There might be some areas where people are not, but 90% of all actions on this planet are captured by cell phone, are captured by essentially something else, somebody else, some sort of camera. This time, 5 different instances were not captured, right? And that begs me to believe that some of this information that is coming out about this was faked. It was all put out there to say, hey, look over here while we do something over here, right? Also, they're gearing up the military industrial complex and they're blaming other states and using this as a psyop to get people behind a motivation to create war and destruction across the world, right? Now, if we look at US and China, they've been sending things into each other's airspace for many, many years. And again, we go back to asking about the radar. If if you had no idea, right, that these things were coming in and now all of a sudden you see one, you're how are you opening up your radar more than you did before? It has been since 19 probably 60 or 70 years before my time that something has come into an American airspace without anybody seeing it, right? Or without anybody basically calling it out or any radar that has picked up anything in American airspace besides, of course, the unidentified disclosure objects, which are Tic Tacs, things like that. And we're seeing this happen. So there's a lot going on right now. And spiritually, what is this meant to do, right? This is why we're kind of a little bit different than everybody else. We're going to give you a spiritual take on it. This ley line needs work from all of the star seeds on this planet. We need to basically give our energy, in a sense, not give it away, but give our concentration into this ley line. This ley line is by far one of the most important ley lines because it cuts through the entire course of the country. So one of the things we have to understand is we need to make sure that we're giving this alien machinery a way out. We're going to push it out. We have to do that because if we let this reside, there's going to be more disasters along this area. And that's going to cut down. And it's funny that these objects all of a sudden appear on this ley line, right? Let's go back to this picture. We have South Carolina is a little bit off, but it didn't start there. It started in that top corner by Oregon and kind of came down through, right? Montana, there's two major points from that ley line that goes straight through it. You see what this ley line here in the black is looking like. It's looking like one of those stars that we don't like to talk about because it's not very good. Now, what it is these focal points essentially branch off to different energetic grids. And when we're looking at them coming together, of course, New York is a tremendous place. We see Chicago as a tremendous place. These are areas where mass consciousness exists, and that's why they're so strong as focal points, right? Now, a lot of these different grids show a lot of different things. I'm looking for a specific grid, and I should have been a little bit more well prepared, but this grid that I'm going to show you is going to blow your mind. It is absolutely just insane. And we have to understand that these grids that are happening are not, they're not, how do I say, inconsequential, right? With that chemical destroying some of the earth on top of that grid, it's opening up a lot of the life force that would have repelled a lot of this negative energy coming out of it. And now it's opening up this negative energy to be cast out and to be released everywhere because of that earth. The mother acts as a shield. And we have to understand when the mother acts as a shield, essentially what it's doing is it's causing that negative energy to dissipate, and without that shield there, it's very difficult for that to be dissipated. And we don't want that to happen, right? We don't want that to happen in that way. It could be very dramatic for the United States. Now, I'm going to pull up this last grid shot. And this is essentially all of the grids overlaid each other, right? And we can see the focal points, right? We see the focal points of all the different grids. Now, these specific ley lines and grids are not essentially, marked out. They're all the same color. But to show you how they intersect and how many intersections are. Now, we see an intersection in Lebanon where that train derailed, right? Where it says, look for where it says Ohio or Columbus. That below it is Lebanon, right? Look in Montana. We're going to shoot over to Montana. You see the intersections, right? And I'm going to switch back and forth between two maps really quick. So look at the sightings. Look at the grid lines. Again, one more time. Sightings, grid lines. There is a cohesion between the two. What does that mean? That means that there is something at work here, right? There is something at work. And the fact that there's something at work means that there's more going on than the government or anybody else is willing to truly talk about. And we're seeing it firsthand how they're disseminating this information. Thank you, Charles. I appreciate you becoming a member. Thank you very, very much. All your support goes back into the broadcast and the podcast. We also have the link for donations pinned at the top of the chat. And if you're feeling that you would like to donate, please do so. Please do so. I see that there is a little bit of lag with the YouTube tonight. It could be because we're talking about things that are a little bit more of the unmentionable, right? We're kind of skimming that censorship surface, but this is important, right? It's important to go through this because next, what we're going to see is we're going to see a position of governments taking accountability for some of these identified objects, or the United States is going to put blame on other countries, therefore, to engage or enact some sort of policy to hurt the people and the regimes in which they're facing off against. Of course, China, Russia, Iran, all these different places. And this is going to be, you know, it, it's really going to be bad for a lot of people. Now, what our job is in this moment is to uncover the truth, bring positivity and gratitude to uplift the global consciousness, right? And one of the things I wanted to do as well is not really dialogue in the next half hour. I kind of want to go into questions from the audience, but I also want to kind of talk about some of the spiritual nature of what has been going on and really just kind of go through the negative impacts that a lot of this is having, right? There's a lot of people who are coming out and saying this is extraterrestrials, it's entities, blah, blah, blah. Now, what's one of the things that they're going to do to those people when they figure out that it's probably not? They're going to shame them. And all of the people who would have come forward, they're going to give them another instance to call them a conspiracy theorist and negate any of the good work that they're doing. These are psychological programs. And these psychological programs are made to put people in boxes, right? And also, they're going to essentially capitulate all of what's happening and chalk it up to some sort of element within the country that, or some other country, whichever they choose, and they could probably do both, to essentially create more of an authoritarian type of regime, right? And also, I see that people are saying that there are satellites. Yes, there are satellites that are falling out of the sky as well. And this is another reason why people are saying that these are not extraterrestrials, right? A lot of people came to this broadcast saying, are they extraterrestrials? The poster looked like it. And potentially they could be, like the cylindrical shape one and the hexagonal one. But I believe that some of these are satellites. It's trash that's falling and they're taking it out, right? It's one of the most expensive cleanups of the sky that's ever happened. That is a potential too. But one of the things I can tell you is if the government is telling us that it's not extraterrestrials, it would make me think that it is. If the government is saying that they don't know anything, I think they know everything, right? This is the mentality of people like myself who are not programmed to be a partisan hack, really, right? Or to essentially follow some sort of narrative. And one of the things that we also were looking at when we were talking about this is Project Bluebeam, right? We all know what Project Bluebeam is, do we not? Well, if we don't, I'm going to show you a picture of what Project Bluebeam could potentially be. And this is really wild to think about because I don't believe that this is Project Bluebeam. I really don't. I think that a lot of this is basically just ushering in a sort of narrative where they can use Project Bluebeam to essentially make things different. So Project Bluebeam in 1994, shortly before his murder, investigative journalist Serge Monaste stated that the United Nations, NASA, and other government agencies were planning to fool humanity into a staged tribulation using a fake alien invasion in order to bring about the New World Order and one world government. This would begin around the same time as the cashless society was emerging. So this is a plan that's been enacted since 1994, right? And quickly, our differences in the world would vanish if we're facing an alien threat from outside this world. And that was Ronald Reagan at a United Nations meeting in 1987. This is Project Bluebeam. We know this. We know this, but we know that this is essentially one of their plans to get things together and get things going and make people fall in line. Also, the smart cities are now coming online as well, which is a big, really bad thing, right? So we're seeing this happen, and to me, I this could also be something that essentially they're working with this blue beam concept. And what they're saying to people is, "Hey, man, this could be an alien invasion. Like, we don't it's not aliens, but we don't know anything about it." Again, could lead back to Project Bluebeam. But hold on a second, I need to take a sip of my coffee. I know tonight's a little different, a little roughshod than we normally are, but I wanted to have a little bit more, openness to this conversation as opposed to just straight lines and things like that. And I see a lot of people are free and clear of this program, knowing that, you know, that they really don't know what it is, and people are I see we're all wide awake, right? Especially this audience and this community. We see through the tomfoolery, we see through the BS. We don't capitulate to any narrative except our own. We live within the love and light, whether it's longitude or latitude, we live within the love and the light. And what that means is that the forever students see past see past everything that's happening. Omar says, "Look at that coffee pot." You are absolutely right, my friend. I am fueled by caffeine and nicotine. That is my substances. That is what we use here to basically to interview and or research. That is the fundamental portions of this energetic broadcast, right? They give us all the motivations and intentions to bring a better world about through coffee and have a good time with it. But so I hope everybody found this informative too. I kind of want to open up to some different things and really talk about what's been happening with the broadcast and how we've kind of gone into the astral realm. A lot, I saw that the astral realm videos were not as receptive as maybe I thought they were going to be. I thought that was a lot of fun to go over, and but no worries. We have a lot more to go over on it as well. Hopefully we can bring a little bit more light to the entities that reside within. Also, again, we have the energetics workshop coming up, and I'm going to tell you this, and I'm not going to tell you this to be conceited or to put more faith in myself. That essentially, it- I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it. I'm not saying this to essentially boast or anything like that, but the energetic practices that I'm going to be putting out within this paid event or this paid series of classes has absolutely changed my life. And that's a dramatic pause. It has changed my life. And why is it a paid event? Because this event, while being paid, is going to essentially give us enough revenue to move to the next event, which we can do for free, and then eventually another paid event so we can boost up the broadcast itself. What do I mean by that? We can get better graphics in here. We can get more going on. We can get better streams and places to be that are that are less regularly censored while still keeping it private without being on places like Rumble and things like that. We're working on creating a server, and this server is going to be a hub for all spiritual information. It's going to be myself and Omar. Omar is leading this project, and we're going to be getting things together to create something just amazing. There's going to be more than just us a part of it, but We're going to be curating information, and we're going to have a place for everybody across this world to come and receive downloads. These downloads, and I don't mean digital downloads, I mean spiritual downloads, right? We're going to have so much information in one place that it's going to be incredible. Also, on a standalone point, I'm working on something. You know, I don't want to unveil it because I don't want somebody to take my idea, right? But from the digital space, which I'm not truly 100% in liking that, right? But one of the things I talk about is having one foot in the door and one foot out, right? We have to be able to use the digital space to bring people out to a place that can help them become more awakened to the world around them. So I'm in process of creating something. This something is going to be at one touch, you're going to have an archive at your fingertips in the digital space, no matter where you are. You're going to have PDF documents that can be printed. You're going to have pictures, charts, graphs, books. You're going to have all the information that I have been collecting over the last 12 years. And when I tell you that this library is vast, it is going to be the new Library of Alexandria. And it's going to be out there for people to access at all times, 24/7, 365, and it's going to be in multiple platforms in the sense of you're going to be able to see it offline as well as online. You're going to be able to interact with the people who are interacting with the material as well. It is going to be a place where this community can grow and flourish at such a rapid rate. It's going to be staggering what we're putting together. And I promise that whether it takes off or not, it for the people who are invested in it, it will be one of the greatest things that I could potentially put together and one of the biggest resources that you will have to help everybody else down the line. And that is paying it forward, and that is essentially giving credence to what we've been working on behind the scenes for almost just about 3 years with this show. So there's a lot going on. That's kind of why this week I was setting up the energetics workshops a little bit more refined. That's why I haven't been on as much, but we're going to change that. We're going to try and get more we're going to try and get more guests in here as well from more perspective. I know Sarah Diog is going to be coming on. She did a presentation at our last event and she crushed it. And I asked her, I said, you have to come on. You have to let the people that listen to this podcast really dive into this with you because it's so incredible. It's so incredible, right? And again, help us by leaving a comment underneath this broadcast when it's finished. We can beat the algorithm. We can do it every time. Leaving that comment boosts the analytics. And I'll tell you what, this broadcast, I don't know if it's shadow banned or what, but there has been some analytics that are coming up that are showing that there is an avid force going against what we're doing, which means that we're over the target, we're headed in the right direction. If there was no pushback, I would be rethinking about what we're doing because we're not close, right? We're not close. But I have been getting tremendous pushback, tremendous. So now it's up to us to come together and push this information forward. Again, we have an inherent duty as star seeds, indigos, and hybrids, whatever we are, right? To engage with those around us still sleeping or beginning to awaken. Sometimes we go into the advanced classes on this channel and we try to make it so that the people who are awakened have more to do and to go further. But we can't forget about those who are just waking up. They are the most important, right? Those who are on that awakening consciousness path are set in motion already, right? Thank you, KGB. I appreciate it. They're set in motion. But the ones who are not awake yet or are still sleeping or on the brink of awakening are stagnated and they're stuck. And they're basically reflective of that groupthink. And I tell you, if you challenge these narratives and this inversion of logic, right? If you challenge it, and you prepare yourself properly, I guarantee that you will call them on this. You'll stump them every time because their ideology goes nowhere. It's not backed up by facts. It's backed up by emotions and feelings, which again are irrelevant, right? The information says fuck your feelings every time. And the information again is the activation. And they are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the ones that we've been waiting for, and we are the ones that they've been waiting for. It all applies. So we have to move in that direction. We have to be steadfast at doing this because thank you, Deborah. Thank you so much. Because what we're seeing is this move towards this groupthink mentality, which is this hiding of information, right? If we looked at everything that we discussed today in the context of mainstream and it was out there in a way for people to critically think about it, it would be way different, right? We would see different situations. Now, especially with the trains, there was a reporter who went out to cover those trains and they were choked out and beat up, right? By government officials. That can't be happening. That can't be happening. They have to remember that they work for these governments around the world work for us. We the people, right? Neo, what's going on? Clarity. Thank you for stopping by. We're we're the ones that they work for, right? We have to take that power back. Stop giving it away so freely. Our sovereignty and our consciousness and ability to discern is on us. That's us. And we have to do it right, right? We have to take these steps into the right into the right structures that create a freer and fairer world for everyone, right? We have to do all that. And that's what we strive for in the consciousness community, right? I would call this a consciousness, you know, or a super consciousness community because we are like a collective. And also in the description below, if you haven't joined the Telegram group that shares information, you are missing a bevel of incredible videos, both political and non political. Also, we do extraterrestrials, we do everything, energetics, everything is in there for you to digest, right? Also, we have a platform called Clubhouse where we're doing open end conversations regularly, right? We're going to be doing it on Telegram as well. But we're going to use these platforms to have open conversations. Those open conversations are going to lead to solutions and things that we can do to propagate this new future that we all see, right? I see Legit's here and Neo again. What's up, man? It's been a long time, Neo. So, with all that being said, I hope that this information tonight found you with love and abundance. And within that love and abundance, I hope you can see the clearer picture that energy is at work all the time, and understanding it is to understand the nature of this reality. So, we're going to do our best within this energetics workshop and for the further episodes to essentially go in and, you know, really go ahead and display the energetics of this world and how it all works, right? So, with all that being said, thank you everybody who joined and became a member this evening. Your contributions are so appreciated. I love all of you, and that is with the most deepest, sincerest, bottom of my heart. I love you all. You are all my family, and I will stand up and protect each and every one of you. I will be on this front line for the foreseeable future, taking hand grenades at will whenever I can. Omar, I love you, brother. And if you guys haven't gone over to Watchers Talk and subscribed as well, I promise you, he was one of the best researchers I've ever met in my entire life. He is in my top 3 for sure, right? He is so thorough and is so amazing. and he's also my brother from another mother, my sister from another mister, right? That's what we say here, but so, I love you all, and I hope everybody is having a great evening, and we'll see you a little bit later in the week. We're gonna have Sarah on in the next couple episodes, hopefully, too. We're gonna go into the incarnation process and energetics. She blew me away with her, presentation at the last event we did, which is also on the playlist that you see here in front of you under the, lives, as we did, 8, 9-hour days on those, and, it was just incredible. So, with all that being said, I love you, and I hope everybody has a great evening. Please leave a comment when this is finished. It is absolutely important, and I'll see you all next time. Thank you.